We are recording the interview of Kellan Arick. This interview is being conducted by David Berry from the Wright State University Veteran Voices Project. This interview is being recorded at Wright State University in Dayton, Ohio. It is 2 p.m. on February 2nd, 2017. Where and when were you born?
I was born in Canton, Ohio in October of 1989. It's about 3 hours northeast of here. That's where my mom and dad grew up. They were born there, so they didn't really move very far.
So who were your parents and what were their occupation?
My mom is Rebecca Arick. She's a nurse. She's been a nurse for 30-some years. My dad is Douglas Arick. He is started a little company. He was just a machine operator, but then he worked his way throughout the company's plant production manager for the actual production side of the business.
Oh, okay.
So.
And then, do you have any siblings, and did they serve in the military?
I have a brother and a sister, both older than me. I'm the youngest. My brother is 30, didn't serve. My sister didn't serve either. But yeah, it's the youngest of three.
What are their occupations?
My brother works at the plant, same plant as my dad.
Oh.
And my sister is, she went to college on a full ride scholarship to get a master's in business. She worked a couple years in Charleston, West Virginia, and then moved out with her fiance to California. So now she's living in California. Unfortunately enough, a failed marriage later. Living in California as I want to say Division II basketball official. And
wow.
she's officiates, I think, semi-pro or professional volleyball as well. So,
That's really cool. What were you doing before you entered the military?
I was working at the shop. I was working at the same factory as my brother and dad. I was a rolling mill operator, and all that is so the company's called MK Morse. They make saw blades. So, you bring in raw material, you high-speed weld another piece of steel to the backer steel, and then production goes on. You cut teeth through it, you cut it into length of saw blades. Any type of saw blade you can think of, that's what they made. But so I was running a rolling mill, which is just, I guess, really compressing the bead of the weld after it came out of a furnace. Just make it a little stronger, stretch it out a little bit, put it within the tolerance of what machines can run for like any type of blade, really.
So, in which branch of military did you serve?
I decided to go Air Force. It's a good choice.
What made you leave the family business of working at the plant and join the Air Force?
So, oddly enough, I was 21. So it took me a couple years to join, but so 21 years old, living at home, just decided, so I was working. This all came about at once. I was working and I was taking a coil. So the way the rolling mill, like I said, it coils it up into these little coils. And I was taking it off a machine and I dropped one of them, it was probably 300 pounds, dropped it onto my knee. So I was kind of like standing, just and dropped down onto my knee. And had to go to the hospital because I thought I heard a pop, just wanted to be safe, didn't want to ruin anything.
300 pounds in the body then.
And I was sitting there and was like, started thinking like, is this what I want to do for the rest of forever? I was working a factory on afternoons from 3 to 11, hating life, and just kind of came to my own senses and was like, I gotta do something. I gotta get out of here. So. And so my best friend's older brother, he's now commissioned. He's a OE2, OE1, something like that. But he was in for a while as EOD. He was actually a Wright Pat too. But I talked to him like, after that night, I'd like, all right, what can I do? What can I get the ball rolling into? So I started talking to him, and he was like, it's a great opportunity. He's gone all over the place. I mean, he was deployed with Army, Marines, everybody, doing his EOD thing. Not that I know anything about what that is. And then I decided to contact my uncle. My uncle was a retired master in the Air Force, 22 years. And talked to him, and he said the same thing. It's just is what, he decided to do it after about 21 years old too. He'd been trying to bounce around through these little odds and end jobs, and then kind of made his decision to get the heck out of Ohio and go off and go see what he could see. Even though now I am back in Ohio. We always come back.
Yeah, can't leave home, it just draws you back in.
Yeah.
So it was following in your buddy's footsteps?
What's that?
So joining the Air Force, was you following in your buddy's footsteps, or that was?
So it was kind of as a means to an end. I mean, he'd given me good advice. I had a couple buddies go straight out of high school into the Marines. A couple guys go straight out of high school into the Army. Fortunately, nobody went to the Air Force right out of high school. But yeah, I mean, it was just kind of a means to get out of a job. It wasn't. I mean, I knew I was getting into something that was harder, and by harder I mean just a lot more time, a lot more effort than loading a coil, pushing a button, letting it run, offloading a coil. So it wasn't about I guess it wasn't about getting out of a job. It was getting out of something that I was stuck in, because that's how it felt at Morse, was just I felt stuck. But
so what happened when you departed for training camp for basic training?
Well, so my first initial, this is the most ridiculous thing in the world. My first appointment to go to MEPS, my mom thought I was gone that day. Really bad. Apparently I didn't explain that well enough. She thought I was going up, you do the initial in-processing and then you go back to leave. So she thought that initial in-processing was me leaving, and she freaked out and lost her mind, and I got her calmed down and was like, no, that's not what this is. But when I went to go to MEPS to leave, my parents came up. They came to hang out with me for the last couple hours that they could, and that's actually when that's what I was trying to say. The first appointment at MEPS, I was in the hospital all night the night before. My brother and his girlfriend at the time were having a kid, and I was trying to be there and try to see the baby before I left for MEPS that day. And then I'm there all night. 7 o'clock in the morning, I got to leave. I got to go to my recruiter station and get in the car to go to MEPS. I get a call at 7:30. Hey, your nephew was born. Awesome, thanks. Couldn't have done this an hour and a half ago. But back to rehashing again. Yeah, so they came up to hang out with me, and they were real nervous. I mean, I think any parent would be nervous about it that doesn't know what's going on. Because my mom and dad have nothing to do with the military. They're big supporters of it, but they don't know. And a lot of people don't know what goes on.
Were you the first member in your family to join the military?
I mean, other than my uncle, yeah. I had a few cousins go, but no close family. So immediate family, I'm the only one that's gone. So they didn't really know what to expect. But so we do the whole, we do the swearing in, and then we go to get on the bus, and my mom is losing her mind. She's crying. One of the very few times I've seen my dad actually cry, which was heartbreaking. But they they decided to be those weird parents, which is just what my parents are. They followed the bus all the way to the airport, and then got out at the airport to finally say, the real goodbye. And then that's where I got into the airport and got stopped for a stupid bottle of shampoo. Little tiny bottle of shampoo. I got stopped at freaking security for a half hour. Like they didn't want me to go, but that's all right. I still went.
Do you recall any of your drill instructors? If so, what were they like?
Man, night one was just bad. We were sitting in that big old auditorium for like 3 hours, just waiting for a bus to take us over, waiting for all these kids to get in from the airport. We get over there, we get off the bus. I mean, it's kind of dusk-ish, so we're getting off the bus, or we're starting, like, we just pull up to the squadron, and I was in the 323rd training squadron there. Yeah, go Mustangs. So we get there, and then we're all sitting there. This guy comes on the bus. I really, for the life of me, I cannot remember his name. He gets on the bus, and he goes, he's real calm, and it's just so surprising. He just comes on the bus, he goes, everybody grab all your bags, all the gear we gave you, get off the bus, line up in 4 rows. And, I mean, we get there, and, I mean, as soon as the first person's foot hit the ground, it was on. Like, we were on the bus, we were left alone. First person's foot touched the ground out of the bus, screaming. Just weren't moving fast enough, apparently. And, like, kids were, like, trying to sprint off the bus. It was a hot mess. And the reason that guy sticks out is because he was, most of them are staff sergeants, tech sergeants, and above. But he was a senior airman. So he's an E4 who's most likely only been in, I mean, you can be in for 2 years and be an E4. So somebody's been in for 3 years is now teaching me, like, is the guy getting us off the bus. And it was just very weird, very surprising. So it was a real big blur, really. That whole first night was a big blur.
Did you have an idea of the rank structure at that time?
I had a little bit of an idea. I mean, I knew a lot of the enlisted ranks. Officer ranks still sometimes to this day get me. I'm like, oh, well, I don't know what that is.
Yeah.
But, so we get up there and we get told to hydrate because it's July. So it's July in San Antonio, and it's 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock at night. It's still 95 degrees. So they're telling us we got to drink 1 whole canteen while we're sitting there listening to them give us their briefing. This kid just stands up and starts running to the bathroom. And he starts getting yelled at, and he's standing there. He just gets, yeah, what are you doing? So he stops and just ralphs all over the floor. It was so bad. TIs were just, oh man. I mean, I'm assuming as a person they actually felt kind of bad, but they were so pissed off. Oh man, that was a hot mess. It was a hot mess of a night. But so our instructor was, oh shit, what was his name? I just had it too. Anyway, Moulton, Staff Sergeant Moulton at the time. He was an avionics specialist for the Air Force, and he was a staff sergeant. So he was our TI who woke us up in the morning to get us down, get us going. And he unfortunately wasn't our TI the whole time. We had some weird stuff. So apparently he had been in New Mexico a couple weeks before we got there and got a ticket, and he was trying to fight it. He was trying to fight some speeding tickets, so he had to leave, and then he got pneumonia. So, like, we missed him for a week for his speeding ticket court date, and then he got pneumonia, so then we got, some tech sergeant. He was like 2 weeks prior, he'd had the week off. This is like after you graduate, I guess you get like a week or so off before you get a new flight. So he ended up taking us, and his flight before us was like honor flight, like top tier, like doing what they were supposed to be doing. So we were grateful to get him from losing our TIs so often. So he came in. We had a couple other guys. Master Sergeant Huggins, he was a pretty cool dude. He was very TI-ish, but at the same time he was real. He wouldn't bullshit you. He wouldn't make you do push-ups for nothing. He was just real with you. If you screwed up, of course you're getting smoked, so it is what it is. But yeah, that's pretty much my whole spiel about that.
So after basic, did you go to tech school? And
Yeah.
what was your job in the military?
So I was the last bus to leave, second to last bus to leave because I was the second closest. So med kids leave last because they're going 5 minutes down the road in San Antonio, but I was a aircraft armament systems apprentice. Was the title of my job, more commonly known as weapons. So we went to Shepherd, and that's in Wichita Falls, Texas. And it's like a nice little 3-hour bus ride of just pure nothing. Because northern Texas is just open fields and nothing. That's all it was. But, I mean, tech school was fun. Tech school was, I guess, kind of like the first initial thought of, like, this is what the Air Force actually is. You know, you're working your job, you're hanging out with people, you're actually allowed to do things.
Yeah, a little bit of freedom.
Yeah, you got that little bit of freedom, and, excuse me, but unfortunately some people took that freedom to an advantage, and that did not pay off for us after a while.
So how did you adopt to military life?
I kind of trying to say, kind of went, boots on the ground, hit the ground running. I mean, I excelled pretty well. Didn't really, nothing real fancy. I mean, I didn't do anything to get in trouble. You know, I kept my nose clean, but it wasn't bad. It just is what it is. Like, you know, you do what you're supposed to do, and you don't get in trouble. You don't get yelled at. If you go above and beyond, even sometimes you go above and beyond, you get yelled at. But if you do the right things at the right time and be noticed by the right people, you know, you start making connections real quick. And I mean, so I moved. I was on the 3rd floor, and I was trying to be. So I was only a E1 when I went from basic training to tech school. So I went up through every single rank. And by every rank, I mean to E4, so. But, so I wasn't able to be like they call them ropes. So you have like your green rope, yellow rope, red rope, and it's just your hierarchy of airman leaders. So I wasn't able to be one of those, and I wanted to kind of stick out a little bit more in tech school. Because basic training was just like, not even saying anything. Just gonna shut up and color. It's essentially what I'm gonna do. So at tech school, I tried to stick out a little bit more, and it got me in a tight spot every now and again. But I became like so we had 3 bays of rooms. So I became the bay chief for our bay, and then I became the floor chief, and then I was doing such a good job that for some reason, I have no idea why, the lady who was running, I forget her name, the staff sergeant who was running our 1st floor decided that now I was going to be 1st floor chief, or floor chief, and which was just the dumbest move ever, because 2 of the bays out of the 3 were for girls, and you can't go down the girls' bays. So I don't know how I was supposed to get anything done in those bays since I couldn't go there. So I was trying to like set up these stupid little, hey, will you be this bay chief, and then you got to do this, and it was a little more work than I was ready for at that point. Just trying to find 2 girls that were willing to, you know, not be stupid. And unfortunately, I did not find any. I got demoted from that pretty quick. I think it only lasted like 2 weeks, and they were like, "Nah, you're done." I was like, "All right, cool, we're good with that." So, but no, I adapted. I don't really feel like there was much of an adaptation point. I just kind of happened to be there, and that's just kind of learned real quick. Just, all right, I got it. Now we're gonna go. So.
Was the physical portion, the PT, did you have any problems with that, or did you get through that pretty easy?
I did. Sit-ups and running, I was fine. I'm 6'5", I've got these long legs. I can stride out 1.5 miles still, as out of shape as I am, in like 14 minutes. So it's my push-ups were bad. I almost, so I think it was 33 32 or 33 push-ups in a minute. And I know, you know, other branches have harder physical fitness than that, but I was unable to get it the first try at basic training. So then later that day, I had to go back up to our dorm room and in front of our entire flight do another set of push-ups, and I ended up getting it that time. So I ended up passing the physical fitness for basic, and then was good. I was actually really good throughout tech school. Then once we got into the actual Air Force, I got a little lazy, and that's unfortunately kind of. It's not exactly how I met my demise of the Air Force, but it's a portion of what caused me to get out.
So after tech school, what was your first duty station?
Shaw Air Force Base in Sumter, South Carolina. Oh boy, I miss it. Like I hated it at the time, but I miss it. It's like, so I was driving. I mean, I came to Canton, and after Canton, I left Canton like one day before I was like the day. So I was supposed to be there on a Monday. I left Canton on a Sunday. Did a nice 9-hour drive to South Carolina. Got there, and like I went from snow, because I got there February. Yeah. So I started driving in the snow from northeastern Ohio, down, get through West Virginia into Virginia. It's a little bit of snow, North Carolina, a little bit of snow, and then nothing. Dead grass, dead trees, pine trees everywhere. And I get up close to the base, and like my first thought of this base is like, the way that we go now, because I still have buddies that are down there, but the way that we go now is not the way I went. The way I came in the first day just made me so terrified to do anything there. Like it was a big old radar tower next to this nasty, so there was an old nasty rotted out rusty water tower right next to this brand new like essentially like a radar. So that, like, just the way, I don't even know, the way that, like, everything kind of transitioned just kind of freaked me out. But I loved it. I loved it and hated it. I really did. Because Sumter's kind of a hole. Kind of a hole in the wall. Kind of trashy. It's from one side of town to the other side of town, you get white trash, ghetto, whatever you want to call it, all mixed into one, and it's the whole city. Just exactly like that. So there's trailers with cars on blocks. There's, you know, Rottweilers in the yard. There's just, I mean, it's just nasty. But if you stay by base and north of base, it's perfectly fine. It was weird. It's just such a transition from base to downtown. So
what were some of the duties you had to do while you were stationed there?
So we were in charge of, so I was on a 3-man crew. Our 1 man was a staff sergeant. I had a couple crews while we were there, but then the 2 and 3 man were really the worker bees. The staff sergeant tells you what to do, and if they don't want to do it, you go do it. So, I mean, weapons is a pretty tight knit community. We work in 3-man crews. We load bombs. We load, you know, I forget exactly what it stands for. It's called AME. So it's pods and wing weapons pylons and launchers. Anything that you can hang a munition on or put a munition onto is what we would put onto jets. So I was a 3-man. So specifically the 1 man is your staff. He just is supposed to know more than everybody else to lead the younger guys. The 2 man pushes the big ass toolbox around the flight line and hates life because he's got to push the box around the flight line. But it's actually the easier job. 3 man is what I did, and I drove essentially a modified forklift. Call them little bomb lift trucks or jammers. And on the jammers, it's got this front arm, and on the arm you put a plate that you either put rollers or a plate for missiles. So the rollers you just lift up, and you just lift up bombs, and you can you drive them around with a strap, and then you put them on the jet. But really, my job in loading was check munitions, check to make sure everything about them that needs to be there for the package that's being dropped is there, and make sure that just make sure everything's there, make sure nothing's broken. I mean, the last thing you want is essentially your fuse to be pulled. You got it's like a little wind valve initiator. There it is. The little initiator is on top of the bomb, and if it's pulled open, it's got a little wind valve inside. So as it drops, it blows air, and that's what sets the time. It's what starts the timer. So if that's on, that's bad news. Don't nobody want that.
Was that a very stressful job? If a rocket falls off a forklift, I'm sure that'd be bad.
So, yes and no. It is stressful, but home station was all CADM. It's all the targeting, everything like that works. There's no explosives in them. So really, at home station, it's like at Shaw, it was like, we drop this bomb, it's going to screw this bomb up, and we're going to have to clear the flight line anyway because of protocol. But it's not going to blow up. It's not going to cause any harm other than if it hits something. When we were in Korea, though, yeah, that was stressful. Because we started doing elephant walks. I think it was a couple months after Kim Jong-un took over power of North Korea. So we started doing elephant walks as like just a little show of force, and we were loading live AIM-9s, live AIM-120s. AGM-88s, and I think Mark 84s. So everything, we're ranging from 250-pound missile to almost a 500-pound missile and a 2,000-pound bomb. So there's a little, and it gets hectic too, because you've got, you're not only are you working around the two other guys that you're working with, you're working around crew chiefs, you're working around avionics. You're working around expediters and pro supers and supers that are all being on one jet, making sure that it's ready to hit the road. So it gets chaotic and it gets stressful, but after a while, it just kind of is like, even if you drop a live bomb, it's not good. You really don't want to do it, obviously, but if your initiator doesn't pop or anything like that, it's not like it's gonna just explode. They're pretty fail-safe, unfortunately. Well, unfortunately and fortunately. So
when did you deploy to Korea?
We went to Korea. When did we go to Korea? We went to Korea, I want to say, April of 2013? Yeah, April 2013. We were a TSP, which is Theater Support Package. Like I said a little bit ago, it was during the change of power between Kim Jong and Kim Jong-un. I forget the first guy's name. Doesn't matter. So it was the transition of power from his father to him, and he had been, I guess, talking about trying to start some stuff, and they just kind of were doing routine, keeping power in check. But yeah, that was an experience. I've never done anything. At that point, I'd never been overseas. I'd never been to a different country. I've gone all over the states. We'd done TDYs, Florida, Louisiana. I think we went to Vegas a couple times, but I've never been actually overseas. And I was lucky enough for it to be Korea, not Afghanistan or Iraq or anything like that, to where I couldn't go off base and enjoy the actual culture. But so that was the benefit of that, was to be able to go. We were over there for 4th of July, and we decided to take a weekend. We took the weekend off and went down to. We weren't allowed to. We weren't allowed to be out overnight, but we were. Nobody knows. So we decided to go down to we took their train down to Busan, their second largest city, is a beach city. We had a group of guys go down there for the weekend. So, I mean, it was nerve-wracking knowing that, maybe, I think it's like 45 miles north of where we were stationed at was the DMZ. So, I mean, that was a little nerve-wracking being like, we're only 45 miles away from a country that really doesn't like this country that we're in. So, and I mean, you know that, like the whole time you know that, and I always had these like weird, we'd be out on the town drinking, gallivanting, doing whatever the hell we were doing, because heaven knows there's too much stuff to remember there. But, there was always that thing in the back of your mind, like, well, what happens if, what happens if they decide they're going to be stupid and try to start something? And it just kind of was like, it was never completely out of your mind, at least for me. I went there with an entire unit, and there was a bunch of guys that had already been in Korea, were stationed in Korea for a year, or had been to Korea 3 or 4 times now. So maybe they were just like, whatever, it'll be fine. But for me, being, in a country like that for the first time was kind of like, it never really left. It was always in the back of my mind, like, what if happens, where do we go? Where do we get to? So.
What kind of friendships did you make while you were in?
I still have friends. So I've been out I've been out for about 2.5, almost 3 years, and I still talk to my supervisor almost every day. He's actually right now, as of now, he's in Afghanistan right now. He's still in. He's got like 6 more years, and he's gonna retire. But I mean, I've made real good friends. And I think it's not only is it the military aspect of where, you work with these people for so long, and you're in the same job that you just create a friendship, but I think it helped being in, our 3-man crews. So not only did I work with, like, I have buddies that if I go down there, I'll see, like, if they're out and about and they want to hang out, I'll go see them, but I go specifically, like, every now and again, like maybe once, twice a year, I'll go and actually hang out with my old supervisor. And I mean, like I said, he's in Afghanistan. I still talk to him almost every day. Another buddy of mine who's still in South Carolina, who's in the capital, Columbia. He talked to him almost every day too. Play video games with him online. It's just. I would have to say, aside from my actual, like, my childhood friend, who's my best friend, those 2 guys are probably my 2 best friends. So, I mean, real good, tight-knit guys. I mean, it's just a tight-knit little group. And I didn't really work on the same crew as the one guy. So, it just kind of hung out after work and created friends there. So
when you were over in Korea, how did you stay in touch with your family and friends back home?
Lots and lots and lots of Skype. But, so funny story. In April, because we left in April. So, a couple weeks before we left, about a month before we left, I'd started talking to this girl, and right before I left, I decided to go home and take a couple weeks of vacation, took a couple weeks of leave, and I decided while I was there, I was going to drive up to Michigan to meet this girl. And we went on a date, had some fun, and we decided, we were going to start talking. And then, 2 weeks later, I was in Korea. So we spent the whole time talking, I guess it's kind of a blessing of technology, because I can download right now an app on my phone and use it as an actual cell phone off of Wi-Fi to call somebody halfway across the world. So that's kind of what I did. I was able to have a text message app and a phone app, and I wasn't able to talk outside of Wi-Fi range, but it's essentially just Skype on your phone. But anyway, yeah, so the whole 6 months I ended up talking to this girl, and then I get back and she's there to meet us when we get off the plane. And then like a couple months later I proposed, and then now we're married. I had a baby on the way. So that was lucky. That was, I don't know how. So like we started talking, and then I decided, hey, I'm gonna come up and meet you and drive 5 hours from Canton to Michigan to come meet this girl that I'd only talked to a couple times on the internet. Met her, great girl, love her to death. She is my wife now, and I'm lucky. So, but yeah, I mean that's just text message, Skype, stuff like that. That's how I kept in contact with everybody.
So what made you decide to leave the military?
I actually didn't decide. That was kind of decided for me. Like I mentioned a little while ago, I had some trouble with PT. Mostly my fault. 99.9% of it is my fault. I do still blame one guy for not giving me a half a push-up and counting it as a whole and making me fail a PT test. But it's fine. He threw up and fell off the track and failed that test too. So vengeance was mine. But so I had a couple PT fails, which resulted in an LOR, letter of reprimand. So that unfortunately put me on a hot list. Just kind of put me in a name of in a list of people. So I was non-promotable for 6 months due to that. And then after that 6 months lapped, I put on senior airman. And then right as I put on senior airman, the quality force review boards came out, and they were doing budget cuts and everything like that. And since my name was on the do not promote list for the last 6 months, and I only had like 6 months of retainability left, and at that point I wasn't sure if I was going to re-enlist, but I was almost positive that I would. I was kind of like I don't want to say that I'm going to, but most likely when it gets to that point, I'm just going to be like, yeah, let's keep this going. But so I got caught on the quality force review board and got not voluntary. I got essentially force separated with commander approval. So I did get separated honorably. So I do have an honorable discharge, but it was not my choice, and I'm kind of still, excuse me, kind of still a little bit broken up about that every now and again. Like I'll start thinking about it and be like, where would I be? Because 4 years, I'd have been at 8 years of enlistment, and then at that point, why not stay another 12? It's really not that bad. So.
How were you received by your family and community when you returned home?
My mom was ecstatic. She was thrilled. Because we actually had two. So my brother had a rental property that wasn't ready yet. So we had to move back in with my mom and dad. My wife and I, after living in South Carolina, had to move back in with my mom and dad. And they were not thrilled about that, but they understood because they knew we were moving out soon. But I mean, they loved having me back. All my old friends, they were more than happy to invite me back into daily life. And oddly and sadly enough, I went straight back into the job I had. So the company the company I talked about before it's a family-owned company. It's been in the family. There's 3 owners. They're all sisters, and they decided that they were going to keep my job. I wasn't on payroll. I wasn't getting paid or anything like that, but they just had my job sitting out there for me. Just if and when I came back, they would have it open for me. So, I mean, it was one of the main reasons that I decided to move back home, is because I knew that job was there. So it wasn't and I kind of kick myself every now and again for coming back and not staying in South Carolina. But, it was kind of the decision at the time was like, I have a job there. There's no worry about me trying to search for a job. It's right there. So, but yeah, I mean, it was warm welcomes all around, really.
How has it been readjusting to civilian life?
It's been weird. So I got out, And then we lived in Canton again for almost a year, and my wife couldn't really find her a job. She's a smart girl. She's managed a couple law firms. She's managed a couple car dealerships. Just something wasn't clicking there, and we couldn't. We just couldn't find her a job. But so I've unfortunately been. I almost feel. Granted. So, all right, I'm getting off topic, but she decided that she wasn't happy with where we were at, so she decided that she was going to join the Air Force. Yeah, it was a big surprise to me. So after I got out, she got in, so I was immediately back in it. And that's actually why we're here. So she got in, went to basic training, did all that. Her tech school was at Wright Pat. And then we moved to California for 2 months, and her father was sick at the time, so they gave us humanitarian, moved back to here so she could be closer. He unfortunately since has passed. So I really like, just recently I've kind of started feeling a little more civilian-y, but I still feel like I'm in it. Because even once I got out, I was in South Carolina for 3 years. I was in Canton for a year. I was in California for 2 months, and now we're here in Dayton. We've only been here under 2 years still. So I feel a little more civilian lifey because of college, and I get to actually engage with other people that aren't just solely military, but I still feel kind of military-ish.
Are you a member of any veteran organizations?
So I guess I'm technically, I haven't been to a meeting this year yet because my schedules have just been horrible. My class schedules are terrible. But I work with Vets League, with Angie and Rob. I don't know what we've got going on now, but I joined a little too late to be even a part of the Vets League ball last year, but I'm kind of looking forward to that this year, getting a little more into it and meeting some more people in the community.
What does the Vets League do?
Yeah, see, I haven't been in it long enough. That's the thing. I just joined up, but the way that it was. So at least of what I understood about the ball was to. On essentially around Veterans Day was to honor veterans and show them a play, like have them come in, show, I think they did a Veterans Voices thing there at the ball, but it's just kind of like loving on each other essentially. It's just showing veterans some love and trying to help keep keep our center alive with community support. That's what I think. That's what I feel it is. The president and vice president could probably tell you otherwise.
So you said you're going to school here at Wright State. What's your degree in?
I am pursuing mechanical engineering. It is rough. I'm only been here 1 full year, including summer, and it has been brutal. This semester, mostly. Like stacking up 60, like I was taking 12 credit hours, and then I realized, oh crap, my GI Bill's not gonna pay for everything by the time I'm done. So now I've had to stack on classes, so it's like 16, 17 credit hours for the next 2 years. And then last 2 semesters, I literally can't stack any more on top of each other because they require so much other stuff that my last 2 semesters are like 12 credit hours. Like bare minimum for passing times. Or for full time, yeah. But yeah, I never really wanted to be a mechanical engineer. I just it was more of I almost want to be a mechanic, just because I like working with my hands. I like being able to, turn wrenches and stuff like that, and that's what I got to do in the Air Force. but I don't want to make, I want to make more money than mechanic money. So I was like, what can I do to actually still use wrenches and put my hands on things and build stuff, but make decent money? So that was kind of my thought process of how to become a mechanical engineer.
So other than making more money with this degree, do you have any future goals you hope to do with it?
So my personal goal is to work with a company that works like not exclusively with the Air Force, but has like primary contracts with the Air Force. Kind of as a way to be like, you know, to have some insight on like, you know, this is something that, you know, this job may need, or to be like, that's kind of just like a little rabbit hole you're going down on that project. You know, that's not really necessary. I mean, just a kind of a better working environment for the guys that were doing tougher jobs than me. So, like, I'd love to work for Northrop Grumman, but I don't know if that's gonna happen. I don't know if we're gonna stay down here after I graduate. That's the problem.
So how did your military experience affect your life?
Very, very positively. I mean, 21 years old, I was dumb. I was just stupid. Gained the legal ability to drink and just got dumb. Just was just being a child. You know, went to basic training, went to tech school, you know, and then just kind of realized like, why would I put myself at risk of like drinking and driving? I mean, not only now do I get a Article 15 and lose stripes for it, but it kind of like wasn't even that. It kind of finally like kind of brought it together, like you could kill somebody. So it just made me, I mean, it kind of forced me to grow up. It's like, I think it forces a lot of people to grow up, but I mean, that's really what I took away from it is, you know, it forced me to become more of a man than a child. So I mean, plus I met my wife. She's awesome, so that's a huge plus. And I made a lot of friends. So I don't really have, I mean, there were times that I was miserable. I'm sure there's times that a lot of people were miserable, just being homesick and missing family. But other than that, I mean, it's a super positive experience for me.
Were there any life lessons that you learned while you were in the military?
Life lessons. I guess kind of. I mean, I can't really think of any life lessons. I mean, I obviously learned how to be, you know, more of an adult, but I can't really pin down one as a life lesson. Just more of just a becoming more active member of society other than a shitbag.
How has your military service impacted your feelings about war and the military in general?
Well, I don't have enough. I mean, I've learned to look into things a little more instead of, you know, I mean, for example, the Iraq-Afghanistan war, you know, when I was 18, I was like, oh, it's a war on oil. It's this, that, the other. And, you know, I just, from what I had heard from other people, no research in myself, no looking into things at all. So, I mean, it's really just kind of, I do think that war is a necessary evil. It's something that I wish didn't happen. I really don't think. I really truly wish that it wouldn't be a thing. I don't think that, you know, just based on essentially two nations comparing egos should, you know, result in members of their nation dying. But I understand. I understand that at some points it is necessary. I mean, mean, not allowing people to, bomb your own country. I mean, that makes sense. I get that.
Well, I have a few more questions left for you. Is there anything you feel like we haven't discussed or should be added to this interview? And if so, what?
I just have a lot of crazy stories I could tell you, but that'll be another day. No, I think it's been pretty well encompassed. Start to finish, it's been. I haven't expounded upon stories like I'm sure some other people have, but they're all there. I've got plenty of stories.
And then, what message would you like to leave for future generations who will see this interview?
I guess, I don't know about seeing this interview. The interview's whatever. It's just me telling my story about my time. But I guess just kind of to the point of like, if people are looking at this, looking as a way of like, what did people experience in the military? Is that something I'll experience? I mean, every experience is different. Mine was very lucky. I came in my first duty station, and my supervisors were awesome. They helped me out. They were legitimately some of the coolest people I've ever met. And I've heard horror stories where people come in and they've got the dirt bags of the dirt bags for supervisors. So I mean, just take everything with a grain of salt. Just make the best of what you can. Make the best of what you got, really. So, but yeah, I mean, just my time was fun. My time was fun. It was short. It was cut a little short, but it was fun. And I made a lot of good friends. So.
Great. That concludes our interview. Thank you for your service, and thank you for doing this interview.
Not a problem. My pleasure.